engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our bodies and our minds, why they are so dangerous. We demand action, justice in every breath. We amplify Latino voices at every level of government and agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency. Together with our field organizers and members in states across the country, we are securing vital health protections for families everywhere through persistent action, including thousands of messages to Congress and regulatory agencies, hundreds of public hearings, press conferences, congressional office visits, community engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our bodies and our minds, why they are so dangerous. We demand action, justice in every breath. We amplify Latino voices at every level of government and agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency. Together with our field organizers and members in states across the country, we are securing vital health protections for families everywhere through persistent action, including thousands of messages to Congress and regulatory agencies, hundreds of public hearings, press conferences, congressional office visits, community engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our bodies and our minds, why they are so dangerous. We demand action, justice in every breath. We amplify Latino voices at every level of government and agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency. Together with our field organizers and members in states across the country, we are securing vital health protections for families everywhere through persistent action, including thousands of messages to Congress and regulatory agencies, hundreds of public hearings, press conferences, congressional office visits, community engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our bodies and our minds, why they are so dangerous. We demand action, justice in every breath. We amplify Latino voices at every level of government and agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency. Together with our field organizers and members in states across the country, we are securing vital health protections for families everywhere through persistent action, including thousands of messages to Congress and regulatory agencies, hundreds of public hearings, press conferences, congressional office visits, community engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our bodies and our minds, why they are so dangerous. We demand action, justice in every breath. We amplify Latino voices at every level of government and agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency. Together with our field organizers and members in states across the country, we are securing vital health protections for families everywhere through persistent action, including thousands of messages to Congress and regulatory agencies, hundreds of public hearings, press conferences, congressional office visits, community engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our bodies and our minds, why they are so dangerous. We demand action, justice in every breath. We amplify Latino voices at every level of government and agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency. Together with our field organizers and members in states across the country, we are securing vital health protections for families everywhere through persistent action, including thousands of messages to Congress and regulatory agencies, hundreds of public hearings, press conferences, congressional office visits, community engagement, media outreach, and more. We tell Washington, listen to your madres, and politicians are listening. We have made amazing progress in our fight, but there's more work to do in demanding just and equitable climate and environmental solutions. Our work is never done. Protections aren't strong enough until every family is safe. EcoMadres empowers and mobilizes parents and caregivers using the most precious and renewable resource of all, love. Join us. Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science and the data with the lived experiences of children, families, and our comunidades in ways that are reliable, culturally appropriate, and bilingual. We make clear why people should care about climate disruption, air pollution, and toxic chemicals, including petrochemicals, how they harm our body.
Can we please give a round of applause to Son Tierra, who has done an amazing job at playing music. And thank you to the young lady who's here in the front playing music. You're amazing. I want to start by thanking everyone who's here today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days. I know that you could be doing so many other things because we have an important person in our state every single day. So thank you very much for taking time to join us for our breakfast. I wanted to start off by just inviting everyone to have a seat, please. Thank you, everyone. And I want to start by thanking every single person who has helped put this event together, our food, our music, and everyone who helped with the setup. So thank you very much. A round of applause for everyone who's here helping with the food. Thank you. And then I would love to ask every elected official to please stand up so we can welcome you to our celebration. Please stand up if you're an elected official. Thank you very much for joining us. And if we have any service members, please stand up so we can applaud you and welcome you. Any service members? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Well, I am super excited to see all of you guys here today. It's an honor to welcome you to our inaugural convening on extreme weather on the impacts of Latina maternal and children's health. My name is Ilenia Aguilar, for those of you guys who don't know me, Ilenia Aguilar. I am a Southwest Field Organizer for Moms Clean Air Force and our Latino engagement program, EcoMadres. I'm so thankful. Woo, thank you. This is like our bautizo / quinceañera / wedding. Yes. So we wanted to go big, and we are an organization, for those of you guys who don't know, we're a national organization, but we decided to do this here in Arizona because not only is it a special place, but the weather is beautiful, but in reality, like, we are facing extreme heat, and we wanted to highlight the work that we are doing here locally. I'd like to begin by sharing the most important job that I have in my life is being a mom of 2 boys. I have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old. If you guys don't know them, most people tell me that they're familiar with my kids because of my social media. But lately, they don't allow me to post pictures of them, so that, they're there. Sometimes my oldest son maybe confuses my boyfriend. He's not. He's 6'2" with a mustache and tattoos. He's my son. So we at Moms, we know that health of our families is directly tied to the health of our environment. For every expecting mother, the dream is to provide a safe and healthy environment for her baby. Experts advise pregnant women to take care of their diet, continue to exercise, and take their prenatal vitamins. But what many overlook is the danger of exposure to pollution and extreme heat, a problem that can have serious consequences for fetal development.
And we recognize
what's worse is the impacts that aren't evenly distributed across all pregnant people in the United States. There's a large ethnic and racial gap in maternal morbidity and mortality between Latinas and non-Hispanic whites in the United States. Latina mothers are more likely to live in areas with the highest levels of air pollution compared to their white counterparts, and those exposed to extreme heat have double or more the risk of preterm birth or stillbirth than white women. Recognizing this alarming disparity, Moms and EcoMadres proudly stood with Representative Nanette Barragan, who sends her regards. She was going to be here, but she couldn't make it. Just last month, she introduced the first of its kind House resolution, protecting Latina maternal infant health. And this resolution marks a crucial step towards maternal and infant health in our communities by addressing the devastating impact of air pollution and extreme heat. We know that Maricopa County is the 5th county with the worst air pollution in the country. And the measures that we're working on, they not only recognize the risk faced by Latina mothers, but also advocate for urgent, equitable interventions to address these unique vulnerabilities. Our communities are on the front lines, and today's event is about coming together to address the challenges we face and solutions that prioritize health, equity, and justice. This convening is a call to action for all of us to advocate for stronger protections, to support mothers and children, and to demand climate solutions that prioritize our health and well-being. Together, we can make sure our voices are heard and build a healthier, safer future for our children. Thank you again for being here, and we look forward to the important conversation we will have today. I do want to say something that was top of mind when I was interviewed earlier, and the question was, how can you as a leader advocate for clean air? And I don't think you have to be an elected leader. Every single person in this room is a leader. Every mom is a leader. Every person can advocate, can educate, first of all, their children themselves, then their children, their community, and sign up for any organization who is advocating and work within their communities. And you can work with your elected leaders. The reason I ask every elected leader to stand is so you can recognize who they are. Because if you have a conversation or something that you want to bring up, especially around clean air, please make sure that you connect with them. This is what the space is for. It's a space for networking, well, for celebration, for fiesta, for comida, for música, because that's who we are as Latinos. We love a good time. We love to be in community. We love to share food together, but it's also a space to build relationships and to network, because we know that this work cannot be done alone, that we all as a community have responsibility not only to our children, all children, and every single person in this state, in this country, and in our world. So every decision that we make has a consequence. And I leave you guys with that. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And then I will introduce, I got so excited about the introduction. I believe our next speakers are going to be current Commissioner Ana Tovar, or Arizona Corporation Commissioner Ana Tovar, and our VP Isabel. If you guys can please join us at the stage.
Okay, we are going to hear from Kadeen Stein and the band after this. I think, Anna, we have the privilege of having you here for a limited amount of time, so thank you for making time. Everybody, my name is Isabel Gonzalez Whitaker. I'm the Associate Vice President for Moms Clean Air Force and the Director of EcoMadres. It is a job that I hold dear to my heart. I am so proud of. And we have Anna here today, whom I'm meeting for the very first time. So thank you. Thank you for being with us. Okay, have a seat, and I have a proper introduction. I just wanted to let everybody know that, Kadeen, we will introduce you shortly after this. So a little bit about Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres, and then I'm going to turn it over to you because, as you all probably know, but I think it bears repeating, we are here with a woman who has broken many glass ceilings, is a pioneer for the region, but also nationally, with many other firsts on the horizon. So thank you again for being here with us. EcoMadres is a program of Moms Clean Air Force. We are a community collectively of 1.5 million, although I think our number is edging up closer to 2 million, members across the country that do what Yelenia said, earlier, which is we are on the ground. We are in front of bad actors who are trying to do bad things in our communities. We are in the halls of Congress. We are testifying in front of the EPA. We are harnessing the power of our voices to make sure that our future is preserved in the healthiest way possible and for our children. And specific to EcoMadres, we know firsthand that the Latino community is the frontline sacrifice communities too often for these bad actors and bad agents. So the work that we're doing here today and picking Phoenix was extraordinarily strategic and by design, right? What you all are experiencing is I'd say a call to action for the rest of the United States. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But this work is critically important, so we couldn't be more excited to debut our inaugural summit here and with thought leaders and change agents like yourself. So, as I mentioned, we know firsthand that families, Latino families, families of color, are disproportionately impacted by air pollution and extreme weather, with some of the most vulnerable being pregnant women and children. And as I said, as we know that this is a national issue, you all are in fact living these challenges here in Arizona every day. And as I said, it's not an accident that we decided to have this summit here where there's a majority Latino population, and it is one of the fastest growing Latino populations in the entire country. And as Yelenia said, you all have some of the nation's worst air quality. Most number of ozone days. Ozone is smog. It's deadly. You do not want a child breathing smog. You had the hottest September ever. You had the most days over 110 degrees. You had the longest streak of hot days. Tragically, you had 613 heat-related deaths with over 400 suspected. One of our Moms Clean Air Force members lost her husband here in Phoenix due to heat, leaving her a widow and leaving her daughter without a father. So this really does hit home and is very personal to us. But despite the tragedy of climate change that is being lived out here in your lives daily, you have incredible leaders in positions of power, making a difference, and Anna Tovar is one of them. So I have the great honor of being joined on stage today with Anna, and she's from Tucson, Arizona, where she began her career as a teacher. She has served her community in a number of servant leadership roles: city council, vice mayor, the House of Representatives, the Senate, where she was a strong advocate for underserved communities. She was the Senate Minority Leader and the Latino Caucus Chair. In 2016, Anna became the first female mayor of Tucson, which I think was, now going on a decade ago, but still deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And where she focused on quality education, job creation, sustainable economic development. And then again, she made history in 2020 as the first Latina elected to the Arizona Corporate Commission. She is also, I know, that deserves a major round of applause. Also, she's a two-time cancer survivor. She knows health crises in her home and in her life. She knows from where she speaks. And she's dedicated her efforts to advocating for other survivors and for all of you. And I also am very pleased to say that you are a noted clean energy and solar energy champion. So thank you for supporting Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres on the ground as we fight those fights. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you have other great things on the horizon, as I teased earlier. I hope that we are all sitting here today with the next Lieutenant Governor of Arizona. Woo! So I'm going to stop talking because we are here to hear from you. The role that you're in currently and the role that you've had for the last few years is more than just policy, and it's more than just pushing paper, right? And this is life or death. Can people afford to turn on their air conditioning, or do they have to buy groceries? These are choices none of us want to have to make, and it is life or death in this state. So I want you, from where you sit and what you've observed in the last few years, tell us about the stories of extreme heat, poor air quality, other influences that impact our community directly and bring down our health outcomes. What have you learned? What have you seen? And how does that motivate you?
Well, first, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. And good morning to everyone. Buenos dias. I would say in the past almost 4 years, I've witnessed quite a bit in regards to the detrimental impacts to our communities. And when I sit on the dais and when I hear people coming to testify at the commission, it hits my heart, because these are people that are taking time out of their day. They want to see the change. They want to see the future Arizonas that, their kids and their grandkids can live in a healthy environment. What I'm tasked with is making sure that I'm representing them, hearing their voices, and making sure that through my policy, through my decision making, that I'm ensuring that we have an Arizona that has a cleaner environment. Going through a lot of the rate cases, you see quite a bit of information and you hear a lot. Also, I would say my task is holding those utilities accountable. And I would say that's probably the part of my job that I relish the most, because I know that the voters of Arizona, that's what they sent me for. They didn't send me to be on the dais just to sit there and twiddle my thumbs. The voters sent me to speak on their behalf, making sure that I'm representing them, making sure that we do have a cleaner air, less smog, that we have infrastructure that is a lot cleaner as well too. I mean, people are absolutely tired of seeing things that are going to continue to pollute our environment, whether it's coal plants, whether it's gas turbines. These are things that hit people near and dear, especially when they're right next door to them. So having witnessed and gone through quite a bit of rate cases, that's one thing I would say I pride myself on, is making sure that I'm holding those companies accountable. I'm trying to move in a direction that is going to be brighter for Arizona and cleaner. And it is difficult. I would say the first 2 years, I was able to start, coalitions with my fellow colleagues. And I would say the past almost 2 years, as you know, politics is right now is very partisan, and it's, people don't talk to one another. So it's very hard, I would say, to try and relate and bring forward, but that doesn't stop me because, as you know, I'm things that are difficult, for me are challenging, but, I want to make sure that I'm stepping up to the plate and speaking about people's, wishes, people's desires, also the issues that hit them, at their kitchen table, the issues that they're discussing with their families of like, can I afford this? Can I afford this medicine, or do we pay our bill, as you mentioned? People that are sick, people during the summertime that, I know that are suffering through this heat in Arizona because they can't afford to turn on their air, or they might have a broken air conditioning, or they might have a swamp cooler or might not have air at all. So those are things I would say that run through my mind on a daily basis. And I'm glad they do, because it definitely puts me in the right direction of what my policy needs to be. And I'm always standing strong and making sure, like, for example, on the heat, I started an investigation and making sure that we were diving in deep. And these were not just numbers that are presented to us. With every number that you mentioned of heat deaths in Arizona year by year, those are people. Those are people who have families. Those are people that, that are going to be missed. Those are, kids that no longer have a mom or dad. So I always picture that when I'm, drafting and creating my policy and making sure that I'm doing my job for the people that elected me.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that you bring humanity to your efforts and to your cause, and also that you continue to stick your neck out. I mean, clearly you're a survivor and you're willing to help others on a path of resiliency and resistance. So over the, it's interesting. You certainly came into this role at a very important time, right? Globally, nationally, and regionally, 50% increase in heat days here in Arizona. How has the commission changed since you've been there in responding to what we're experiencing, what you all are experiencing firsthand, and what could they be doing better?
So I'd say the first, year, it was a lot more positive in trying to make positive changes where we would find issues that weren't as political, and I would say that has garnered the most traction. I would say the past, 3 years, it took a turn, and not a turn for the good of Arizona in regards to how they're handling different policies, how they're eliminating different types of issues. For one, just in renewable energy goals, we are the first state ever in the country to get rid of renewable energy goals. And for those of you that may not know what it is, it's a standard that holds our companies, our utilities accountable to moving forward to creating more renewable energy, cleaner energy, solar, whatever it is, it's geared in that direction. Every state in the nation has one. And they'll meet their goal, just like different cities have them as well too. But the commission decided that is no longer needed. We don't need these goals, and so that I would say was just that hit me hard, and I fought very hard.
I just want to clarify. So you don't need goals because it's just being integrated into the larger plan, right? So that to establish a goal is to reach a milestone and be like, okay, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
But this is now something that's being essentially incorporated into the planning such that it's never mutable, that it's always something that's dynamic and in moving forward to achievement.
Yes, yeah. So right now, these companies, they're not mandated to meet these goals. So they can come up with any type of, energy that they want and say, hey, well, we have this much demand and we're going to be, investing more in gas turbines because we feel since we don't have these goals that we need to meet or not mandated to, they're going to decide on their own. And so, as the commission, we're mandated to make sure that we are representing and holding these companies accountable. So right now, I would say that direction is not there. And I would say that's why it's so important in regards to the upcoming election. We have a pivotal moment in Arizona to turn around the commission. For decades, it's been run by Republicans and mostly those that are gearing towards the opposite direction and moving us forward for a cleaner and safer environment in Arizona. So it is definitely crucial. If you haven't voted already, I'm going to say it, please vote for the 3 Democratic commissioners that are on the ballot. They are amazing. We need that change now. Guys, there's so much happening at the commission, it's scary. And you know it when you open up your bill every single month. You know that your bill has gone up in the past 3 years. If you're an APS customer, they've had 3 rate cases in the past 4 years, and they're going to have another. And so you know that your bills are going higher and higher and higher. And guess what? Their investors are getting richer and richer. And the customers are bearing the brunt of those increases because they're paying it month by month. If you're a solar customer as well, too, you have an added fee just to have solar. That was passed less than a year ago. So again, wrong direction, but we can change that. We can change that come November, and having amazing Democratic candidates go in and be our commissioners and turn the commission around.
Well, it sounds like it's not just an exciting opportunity, but an important opportunity. And thank you for bringing our awareness to it. I like to just pat ourselves on the back, and we've got Hazel and Yelenia and others who have led this effort. There are a lot of electric school buses driving around these streets. I know. Let's get a whoop for that, for sure. We're very excited about that. I see that as, we started out this conversation with a lot of very tragic data points. I like to see that as a very positive data point and a bellwether of other good things to come. Do you, in your heart, hold optimism and hope? What do you want us to know as we take on these battles to advocate for cleaner options, whether it's the utilities and energy and renewable energy, or more buses, and many of the other things that we're doing? Like, how can we keep going in the face of what sometimes seems like insurmountable odds?
I am hopeful. I am optimistic. And when I look into the crowd, I see every single one of you that, as Elena said, you don't have to be an elected official to make that change. It could be as simple as using your voice and making sure that you're sharing your story. And I think sharing your story, whether it's at a school board meeting and wanting to have more electric buses, whether it's at a city council meeting, wanting them to move forward more with renewable energy and a cleaner environment. You can use your voice at any stage. At the commission as well too. I would say also, when I look in this crowd, I see leaders that are advocating day in and day out. They are elected officials. They're at the state level, the city level, the school level, and they're there fighting. And it's not easy. I know it's not easy because I've been there, done that, and I'm continuing to do it. But it's because of people that are in office right now, that are going to be elected to office, and every single one of you in here, we have everything in us right now to make that change for the future that we want to see. And yes, it could be difficult to get out and do that. It could be intimidating, but I think, right now we don't have that choice. We don't have that luxury just to sit down on our sofas, and there's so much happening that we need to make sure that we're using every tool that we have in our toolbox to make our environment better, not only for our kids, for our grandkids, and for the next generations to come.
Thank you for saying that. I always feel that oftentimes when people think about civics, they think about the act of voting or running for office, but there's so much more that can be done. And sometimes it's that stuff in the middle, right? The letter writing, the showing up at school boards, having your voice heard, knocking on doors, that really gets the work done. So thank you. Can you drill down a little bit and give us an example of a personal success story as it relates to your career or an effort that you were involved in, such that we can maybe glean some examples of why it worked?
Yes. I would say the first one that comes to mind, and I think in the introduction is mentioned, of always serving the underserved population. I would say that has always been my focus throughout my tenure of public service. One that comes to mind is, it hits definitely near and dear to my heart. As was mentioned, I am a 2-time cancer survivor, and so I was new to the state legislature, and this was way back in 2009. And you can imagine in 2009 where we all were. It was the Great Recession. And so during that time at the legislature, it was a hot mess. And when I say a hot mess, we didn't have any money. They were actually, they actually rented out our buildings there, because we were looking for cash flow. There was one particular line item in the budget that was cut, and for many people, glanced over it, didn't worry about it. But for me, when I heard about it, it cut $1.4 million. And in a budget that is billions, it is minuscule. I mean, it's nothing. It's a blink of an eye. It's a couple of pennies to a normal, budget. But that $1.4 million took 99 people who were awaiting a transplant on Medicare here in Arizona. They took them off that list from one day to the next. So they literally got a letter in the mail and said, oh, by these budget cuts, you no longer have that option to get a transplant. And these were people that have exhausted all other resources that they had to stay alive. So these were people that had cancer and needed transplants, needed a lung transplant, liver in order to survive. They lost that opportunity from one to the next. So then I took on that role of saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that we bring back that $1.4 million in funding. So, had 8 different type of bills, and I was out there fundraising the money. And back then, Governor Jan Brewer was our governor. I would call her office every day and say, hey, I have solutions on the table. Let's get this done. There's people's lives on the line. Nothing was happening. It took 6 months to reinstate $1.4 million into our state budget. I brought forward the patients to come and speak every single day on the floor. I had them go to their senator and their representatives. I had my colleagues from the other side of the aisle telling me, can you stop? Can you just stop? And I'm like, stop what? They're like,
Well, then you knew it was working.
yeah, stop. I'm so sad to hear all these people that are dying and their patients. And I was like, well, good. Like,
Guess what? You're in a position to do something.
exactly. We can make the change right now. And so one night we had a vigil because there had been 4 people that had passed away. And this would have been, 60 days in. And I don't remember what I said, but I was interviewed by Fox News, and I must have gone off because I was sick and tired at that point. Sick and tired of people, losing their life for no reason at all. They could have that opportunity to survive. The next morning, I got a call from the governor's office, and it was, you're not going to stop, are you? I said, I'm just getting started. I said, and the key is here. I was like, I don't need the recognition of bringing forward a solution. The solution is there for the people. Back then, it was now 95 people that need the second transplant. So within that conversation, 2 days later, the bill was reinstated. The $1.4 million was given back, and 95 people were able to get a transplant and hopefully survive from, an illness. And that day that we actually reinstated, there was a gal by the name of Tiffany Tate. She was an 18-year-old coach out in the East Valley. She got her call for her double lung transplant that same day that we did it. It was something that, of course, as a 2-time cancer survivor and having 2 transplants and knowing that transplants do work, for me, I was in the right place at the right time, advocating and fighting and not giving up.
If somebody has some Kleenex, we could use some Kleenex up
when
here.
I would say when you go through a journey such as cancer or a transplant, you may not know why it's happening to you. And I had that one moment, when I was, in the hospital room and really, fighting for my life and saying, why did this happen to me? Well, when I fast forward, a few years later, I knew why it happened to me. It was a journey I went through to know what it meant to help fight for others. And so again, I use that same passion and energy when it comes to fighting for people that are underserved, when it comes to our communities that feel that they don't have a voice, which essentially they do have voice. Every single person has a voice, no matter what zip code you live in. You are important. And I want to make sure that we have a state that, number 1, is going to be healthy for us, and number 2, provide us the needs that we need to be successful, whether it's economics, whether it's health, whether it's education. Those are all crucial components in making sure that our state can move forward for our Arizona families.
Wow. Thank you. I mean, this is what you want, right? You want leadership that has heart and compassion and empathy, and that through line of your own struggle and your own battles that have now not only sustained you through those times, but fortified you for these other fights. And it really, really resonated with me, and I think the work that we do at EcoMadres and Moms Clean Air Force, which is anchored in public health. So thank you. Thank you for your life. I'm sure could have taken many paths and many journeys after that diagnosis, and you obviously used it to create the silver lining for a journey where now you are impacting thousands and thousands of lives to be better. And this idea of empowering people and giving them a platform, right? That you don't need to just be an elected official to have a voice, right? And the lesson that I learned from this incredibly personal and incredibly successful success story that you just gave of impact and change is tenacity and creativity, right? Like, you knew that you could tap into the spirit and stories and bring that humanity probably to a room where that is often overlooked. And you did it in such a way that they really took notice and they had to react. And we do a lot of that at EcoMadres and at Moms Clean Air Force, where we bring the stories to the table. So thank you for demonstrating that, and I hope everybody remembers that. I'm going to end with a question that I could have started with, which is, certainly the journey of your health has informed so much of your path and your servant leadership, but it sounds like it may have started a little bit earlier than that. And I read a story about your grandmother or great-grandmother and her influence on your life. Take us back a little bit about what Anna's life was like as a child, and this life of servant leadership that you are leading, and how it may have been written before any of all of that.
Thank you for that question. So I grew up, I had an amazing childhood. My grandparents were migrant farm workers, and so worked the fields. They came from Sonora, Mexico, worked from Arizona all the way up to Washington, depending on the season. And then my parents as well too were field workers as well too. My dad then got a job at AT&T and became a CWA union member for 40 years. It's amazing. What I learned from my dad is that in those 40 years, he never missed a day of work. Never missed a day of work for those 40 years. My mom and my uncle, they had a small grocery store. So when my grandparents were in the field, they started selling sandwiches and things. They had a little fruit stand for all the workers, and then that migrated into making a little store there in Tolleson. So I was born, and 3 days later, I came to what was John's Market. So my tata's name was Juan, but they told him that he couldn't have a store named Juan because no one would come. So he Americanized it and called it John's Market. So from 3 days old until 33 years old, I was at that store every single day. Whether it was after school or during our summer times, we were there every single day. That was our job. That was our responsibility as a family. So those little learning lessons at the store, you know, I learned them every single day of how to treat a person. You know, the customer is always right. You know, we were there for families in our community at their best times and at their worst times. And my grandparents instilled in me of, like, you know, no matter what they were going through, we were there to help them. And we, you know, didn't establish the store to become rich with money, but we ended up coming rich with love and friendship in our community. And it was always instilled in me of, like, never forget where you came from and always remember to give back to one another, whether it's in, you know, a good period of the life or a bad period. My great-grandma, we called her Nina Carmen because she didn't want to be called abuelita. She was like, oh, no. And I've got that because now I have a grandson, and he's 1 year old now. So they tell me, "Are you a nana?" And I was like, "No, I'm a grandma."
I like that.
Yes. So we would go visit my Nina Carmen every weekend in Tucson, and So we would go and, she would give us paper and we would color and I would turn it around and I would be like, Carmen, what is all this word? What are all the words on this paper? Like, why don't we have like color paper? She said, mija, we recycle everything. We don't need color paper. You draw your picture the way you want it. And so she said, well, I used to work at the legislature. And I was like, well, what is that? At the state capitol. And she was like, she chose a job at the state capitol for the post office. And she could have picked the post office there in Tucson to work at, but she would drive and come on a Sunday and then leave on a Friday back to Tucson. She would stay with her sister here. And she delivered mail to the legislators in the House and the Senate. And I said, Nina, why did you do that? And she goes, well, I wanted to make sure that people knew that I was Mexican and that we belonged at the state capitol. Because she said, back then, the vast majority, every single person there, was of white descent. And she goes, I wanted to make sure I was representing us.
Wow.
So she started there.
Wow.
And it was her hopes and dreams to make sure that one of our family members, because she would tell us all the time when we would be there, she said, mija, one day, one of our family members, they're going to be serving there where I used to deliver mail. Like, they're going to be making decisions for our community.
Amazing.
She's like, that's why I went there. And I'm just super excited that I fulfilled her goal.
On her shoulders, the path that she paved. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your compassion. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
I think we're going to take a picture. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Back to you, Yelenia. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. A please round of applause for our Associate Vice President, Isabel Gonzalez Whitaker, and our Commissioner, Ana Tovar. What an amazing story. I'm so touched by all the stories, Commissioner Tovar. I often, for those of you guys who don't know, I'm formerly undocumented, and I always used to ask myself, like, why me? Why did I have to go through all these struggles? So with your story, I felt a lot of connection to that, because when there's a lot of suffering, which being undocumented or having a health condition can bring, you always wonder why you. So thank you for that. Now I feel like I belong today. With that, I would love to introduce our amazing musician and also an EcoMadre, Karin, who will talk about Son Tierra and the amazing work that they do. Karin?
Gracias, muy amable. Soy Karin Stein, soy colombiana. I'm Karin Stein, I'm Colombian. I'm Iowa coordinator for Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres. And this is Son Tierra. How did Son Tierra come to be? At Moms Clean Air Force, the leadership recognizes that we're best at anything, sending a message, anything, if we use our talents, if we don't try to be somebody else that we're not. And after a couple of years of working with Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres in Iowa, I, being a restless musician, suggested that we include music in our mission. ¿Por qué? Porque la música, para los que somos de identidad latina, es un lenguaje. Es un lenguaje que crea confianza, que crea conexión. So why? Because music, for those of us who come from various Latino cultures, however, check us out. Each one of us is Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, you name it. Some of us are residents here. I'm not a US citizen, I don't vote in this country. But my example serves to show people who don't vote in this country that they have a voice and they can make a difference. And Moms Clean Air Force recognizes this. So they trusted us to create Son Tierra, which means we are the earth, or we are the music of the earth. And we would like to do, before I ask all of the band members to introduce themselves, let's do a song together. Speaking of stories, when my dad turned 70, I wrote a song for him. And my mom said, so when are you going to write a song for me? Moms sometimes do that. I finally wrote a song for her after she died, long time after she died. But moms also forgive, right? So this is a song inspired by a lullaby that she cradled me with. And you're going to help me. Quickly, the words say, my mom cradled me with her song without knowing what someday should be my tears, my worries. She didn't know that her daughter, her children, would be facing this climate crisis. Today, this lullaby is for Mother Earth, who has a fever, and we are not listening to her in her agony. Our Mother Earth cradles us every day, and she's screaming that we please help her so that she can heal and give us life. And your part is, so this is, we're gonna sing, it's a call and response piece, and let me just point out that we're going to use bamboo sticks. This is a symbol of resilience. This is an Afro-Venezuelan instrument that enslaved people turned to, things that they found in their field because they were prohibited from playing their own dances and instruments. This is what we're faced with now. We have to be resilient. We have to find ways to adapt and to go forward. So, I sing, mamita 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 mamita. You just hang on, try to do it, because we're all figuring this out as we go. All right? Fuerte. Más rápido. Mamita 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 mamita
Mamita mamita mamita mamita mamita mamita mamita mamita mamita.
Mi mamá me arrullaba con su manto, mi mamá me arrullaba con su canto y me mecía sin saber que un día sería mi llanto, sería mi canto. Mamita 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 mamita
Hoy este arrullo es para la madre tierra, hoy este arrullo es para la madre tierra, que tiene fiebre y no la escuchan en su agonía,
mamita todo el día y pide a gritos que le ayuden a que se sane y nos dé vida. Mamita 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 Muchas gracias. So when I came to this country, I came from a culture that kind of delegated to the experts stuff, anything, decisions. And in this country, I learned, And you know, I grew up hearing people say, I'm not really into politics, that's somebody else's. And when one grows up and you realize everything is political. Your roads are political, your schools are political, your health system is political, everything is political. Yes, you are a political person. And so each one of us has a little reason, or a huge reason for being here, but we're going to keep it short. I want to have, before we do a second song, I want everybody to quickly say who they are and why they're singing with Son Tierra, and I'm going to start with the oldest member of the group. He's barely older than I am, but I'm picking on him because he's what we call a super dad. We have super moms and super dads in each state. These are volunteers who show up time and again to our events. Entonces, super padre Edgar.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. La música es un lenguaje universal. Music is a universal language. The right song at the right time can change minds, can change hearts. La canción correcta en el momento preciso puede cambiar la manera de pensar, la manera de hacer las cosas. For the future of my 4 children, and for all of our children, all of our Latin American family, I want to bring this message of action through music. Para todos nuestros hijos, los 4 hijos míos y los hijos de ustedes y de la familia latinoamericana, quiero llevar este mensaje. Es un mensaje importante, un mensaje de acción directa y fuerte, ¿verdad? Para que con nuestra música esperemos que podamos darles a ustedes un poquito de ánimo para que votemos a favor de nuestros hijos. With our music, we hope that we'll give you the message, the strength, the inspiration to vote for all of our children.
Where are you from?
Panamá, panameño.
Eso. Everybody here speaks at least 2 languages. So, just understand, I hope, ¿hay alguien que no entienda inglés? Okay, everybody here also understands English. Okay, fine. Entonces, en inglés, Gaby, our youngest member. You can use your paper, that's quite all right. Just belt it into the mic.
Hola, mi nombre es Gabriela Valdivia. My name is Gabriela Valdivia. My mom is Brazilian and my dad is Mexican, and I was born in Iowa. I sing with Son Tierra because I want to help save the animals from floods and extreme climate.
We're gonna go with Marian.
Hello, my name is Marian Vivas. I'm from Caracas, Venezuela. And I'm playing in this group Son Tierra because I believe my environmental message can reach people's heart through the music. And yeah.
Vamos, vamos con Valentina.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Valentina. Hi, my name is Valentina. Yo soy puertorriqueña y mexicana. I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican, and the reason why I'm singing with Son Tierra today is because my future and the future of my generation matters and deserves to have a safe and environmentally safe future.
Vamos con Edgar Solís.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Hello, everyone. My name is Edgar Solís. Come from Mexico. My mom is Mexican and my dad is Mexican, so I come from Mexico.
¿Por qué
And, well, I am a minister in a United Methodist Church, and part of my work is education, educate our faith communities. So many of us have misinterpreted that many times, you know, religion is not concealing very well with science and good stuff that is happening in terms of environment. But that is a wrong assumption. People of faith do care for creation. People of faith do care for animals and plants and environment. So when I was invited to participate in Son Tierra, I was attracted by the music because I'm also a musician. So I was thinking, well, it will be a good stuff to play music with Karen and Eddie, my friends. But then after I start to play with them, I get this as part of my mission also with many of our families and faith communities. So I have just one short quote that I get from one of the environmental experts. I went to a conference in Chicago, and this guy is an expert in environment science. His name is James Gustav Speth. He's an environmental lawyer and advocate, and he said something like this. He said, I used to think the top global environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. The top environmental problems really are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with this, we need a change, a shift in the mentality and the spiritual and cultural transformation. And he concludes his quote by saying, sometimes we scientists, we don't know how to do that. So there is where I think faith and education plays a very important role. Thank you.
Leo.
Hello. My name is Leo Roldan. I live in Dubuque, Iowa. I was born in Argentina.
Woo!
My mom is Argentine. My dad is also. My family came from Italy back in the 1920s. And I play with EcoMadres. I want to keep it short because I love this earth and I'd like it to keep growing and then also to inform and advocate about climate change.
Yes. Good.
Vamos a hacer corrido al Congreso, ¿verdad? Sacaste la tarjeta. Entonces, en vez de legado, hacemos corrido al Congreso. I'm going to conclude. I'm Karin Stein, as I mentioned. I'm a mom. The day I held my firstborn, I realized I had become every child's mother. This is about all the young. And this song I wrote for elected officials. It's our only bilingual song. It's called Corrido al Congreso. Thank you so much. And I want to thank moms because I think we are the only environmental organization that actually supports a group of musicians to send out the message. So let's give them a hand. Mm-hmm.
Este corrido queremos cantarles a todos aquellos que nos representan. Dear members of Congress, we sing for our future. We hope you will listen on what we're going to do. This song's for you. Somos la raza, latinos, hispanos, luchamos, andamos, este es nuestro hogar. We bring to this land the best we can get. In Spanish or English, we work and we sing. This song's for you. Por nuestro futuro y por nuestros hijos queremos buen aire y una tierra sana. We're ready to fight. Let's fight for our future. Our children are watching. The climate is screaming, and we sing to you. This song's for you. Miembros del Congreso, podemos lograrlo con este corrido y poniéndole ganas. The will of your people for better conditions and for better jobs. The future can shine. This song's for you. nuestro futuro y por nuestros hijos queremos buen aire y una tierra sana. We're ready to fight, let's fight for our future. Our children are watching, the climate is screaming, and this song's for you. Dear members of Congress, this song's for you. Gracias.
There we go. That was amazing. Again, can we round of applause? Amazing. That last song, Karin, it really touched my heart. Thank you so much. And thank you very much. And before we move on with the next important panel, I would love to recognize Edward Chu, Dr. Chu, who is a former deputy administrator for EPA, but now working for under President Crow as a special advisor. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Dr. Chu. And with that, I would love to introduce our moderator for the panel, someone who I truly admire and respect. Actually, admire and respect everyone in this room. But Catherine Anaya, I really look up to you, the work that you do, especially because you give Latinos a voice in the state that really, we've always been here. And to recognize us and to continue our stories by sharing our stories through your platform. So thank you. Catherine Anaya is a 3-time Emmy Award-winning journalist and host of Horizonte on Arizona PBS, a series focusing on issues important to the Hispanic community, with over 34 years in broadcasting, including 12 years as a CBS Phoenix News anchor. She is recognized for her journalistic excellence. In 2017, she was inducted into the Silver Circle by the Rocky Mountain Southwest chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Career highlights include interviewing President Obama and co-anchoring a debate with Walter Cronkite. Anaya has also been named Anchor of the Year by the Arizona Associated Press. And with that, please welcome Catherine Anaya. And she's another tiny person, so I hope you guys get to see her.
Thank you so much. Ilenia, you got me emotional before I even started, so I appreciate that. And can we give Karin and the other musicians a big round of applause? I mean, I think that we should have music in every single thing we discuss, right? Especially when it's of importance. So thank you so much for having me here. We have an esteemed group of panelists joining us today. And as I call your name, do we want to have them sit from here this way? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to call you in a particular order, if you would please come up, but I'm going to first tell everybody about you and why you are here and what makes you the experts that you are. Dr. Eugene Levar is Arizona's first Chief Heat Officer. He was appointed in 2024 to lead Governor Hobbs' Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan. And since starting his public health career in 2012 as an epidemiologist with the Arizona Department of Health Services, he has held key leadership roles, including Bureau Chief of Epidemiology and Disease Control and Assistant Director of Public Health Preparedness. His work focuses on addressing border health, infectious diseases, and the impacts of extreme heat, shaping public health policies to protect Arizona's residents amid rising temperatures. Please welcome Dr. Levar. Next, we have Noemi Emmerich Ford. Noemi is the director of the U.S. EPA's Southern California Field Office, overseeing operations and serving as the senior level manager for Region 9 in Southern California. With 30 years of experience at the EPA, she has led programs in Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Los Angeles, focusing on environmental justice and cumulative impacts across the Pacific Southwest. Recognized with the Vivian Malone Jones Legacy Award, she is dedicated to equity and inclusion. She holds a BA and MA from the University of Illinois at Chicago and lives with her husband and twins in Pasadena, California. Please welcome Noemi Emmerich Ford. And we have Yadira Sanchez. She is the co-founder and executive director of Poder Latinx. She has been an active advocate for immigration and environmental justice for over 15 years. Her broad experience in the nonprofit and advocacy sectors includes serving as development director for Mi Familia Vota, where she helped raise over $20 million and expanded the number of strategic partnerships with major organizations and allies to increase year-round civic participation within the Latinx community. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of California at Santa Barbara and a master's degree from George Washington University. Please welcome Yadira Sanchez. Want me to use this mic? I think it'll reach. Yes. We do make it happen. Thank you so much for joining us here today for this really important conversation. I do have several questions for each of you, and I'm just going to kind of bounce around a little bit if that's okay. So, Dr. Livar, I want to start with you. Let me just get to that page real quickly. In your role as Arizona's first chief heat officer, what specific measures are being implemented to protect children's health, particularly in Latino communities, from the effects of rising temperatures? Because as we all know, Arizona broke more heat records in 2024 than we did in 2023.
You know, with the state of Arizona, we have a lot of efforts that are going on across the state, and it's really a task to catalog everything that's happening on that end. But I'll also mention that recently, just this Wednesday, we had our second annual Heat Summit, and children really came out as a prominent topic to focus on for 2025 to ensure that we are focusing on them and protective measures and education moving forward. So I think we'll be having some heightened focus on not only our Latin communities and socially vulnerable communities, but also children in general across the state. But Arizona has really started this heat season, and even before too, because there's been grassroots efforts happening for over 2 decades within the state to deal with extreme heat. But we really focused on the promotion of education and awareness this heat season, starting in April and May, before we started seeing some of those extreme temperatures. One of the things that we need to know within our state is each heat season is its own. This year, we started about 3 weeks earlier than we did in 2023, starting to see elevated temperatures. And as you know, today we're going to be into 98 degrees, maybe possibly 100 tomorrow. We're seeing extended heat seasons happen. And my speech used to be heat season goes until the end of September, maybe first or second week of October, and that does not hold true anymore. We've also worked with our Arizona Department of Economic Security, which coordinates the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, to help those who are in need for utility assistance, to help get money out to community members that just need help mitigating those gaps when it comes to those utility bills that they're dealing with during heat season. And then with that, we also partner with 211, which is a great program and an easy number to remember to be able to get connected to resources. They help community members in English, Spanish, and other languages connect to programs such as LIHEAP, but also weatherization, fine cooling centers, transportation, and other programs that are available across the state to deal with extreme heat. So that is a great partnership that we have along with our partners at Access and DES to help community members across the state. At the Department of Health Services, we have toolkits available. We have a school toolkit, also outdoor worker toolkit. We're working on updating those and making sure that they're available in multiple languages, and that provides resources, educational materials, and guidance on how to deal with extreme heat for those particular communities as they go forward. Also, we have a Sunwise program and also an annual poster contest for kids that kids can participate in to help break down the barriers, because I think a lot of times we don't think of our Latino communities or people of color being at risk for skin cancer, and there is a risk out there, and it does happen, and we need to break those myths. So we help get the kids, make them aware. They can also receive prizes and get recognition that's posted annually on the ADHS website. And we also go out to schools and provide free training, resources, education, train the trainer programs to help schools educate kids and also educators and others on the risk when it comes to skin cancer on that end too. And that's totally free, something that we do on our end. Then we promote innovative tools that are available across our state. So we partner with the American Red Cross and their Prepare with Pedro program for kids. They deal with educational materials that are available in multiple languages for extreme weather and other hazards. And they have a specific extreme heat focused program that's available in English and Spanish. Really great to get kids aware of what they can do and how they can help educate their parents and families on how to deal with these situations that they may be dealing with on that end. ASU is a good partner that we have, and they just came up with a Beat the Heat interactive game that's a bilingual game. It's really great online module. You can learn all about heat, how to prevent heat-related illness, how to prevent others, and get general education on that end too. We help promote grants such as the American Academy of Dermatology Shade Structure grant that's out there that individuals can take advantage of. We also applied for grant opportunities to see how we can work with socially vulnerable communities and Latino and other areas to look at schools or other community centers to build them up as resiliency hubs or cooling centers across the state and really grow that infrastructure and bring those services home where they're needed so people are not having to travel farther to be able to get relief as we go forward. We're also developing multilingual educational and awareness materials that are available to anybody across the state. They can be co-branded or branded alone, and we're making sure that they're available in language and easy to understand ways to be able to spread the message of heat awareness and prevention and hydration for our state. We also encourage everyone to sign up for heat alerts, whether that be general heat alerts or school heat alerts. So you can know about those extreme weather days, along with getting that alert either by text or email. It gives you preventative steps you can take to help protect yourself and others when those weather conditions are expected. It is a great free service. It's a reminder that there's going to be a high heat day and what you should do to prepare for that day. So we encourage everybody to sign up for those alerts within our state. And then we have a lot of local efforts happening that are really great with our partners and stakeholders on a county and municipal level and cities. We have the city of Phoenix and their shade plan that brings out shade promotion and grant opportunities to the South and Southwest Phoenix to help promote shade equity across their city. We have cities like the city of Tucson who are leaders and innovators to free bus programs that are out and available. The individuals can just get on a bus and ride for cooling efforts, or they can get from A to B if they want to get to a cooling center or other areas that they need to get to free of charge. And so we see a lot of innovation happening across the state, and we have a lot of focus on our Latino communities and those socially vulnerable communities and just Arizona's in general. And I think we really are having the perspective that we need to have a look at the whole state, not just our urban areas, but also our rural areas and our tribal communities that are out there, so that we're making sure that we're helping and leaning in everywhere and having a listening ear across the state.
Obviously, you are very busy, especially with temperatures increasing with every single year. We know that bilingual education and awareness is extremely important when we are talking about protecting our families. Can you just to follow up on this, tell us what the top concerns are, particularly when we're still dealing with the high temperatures? What are the top concerns when it comes to our Latino children and our Latino senior citizens?
Sure. I think our top concerns are awareness and also social connectivity as we go forward. We have our general messaging, to stay aware and to be educated and be aware of heat-related illnesses, signs, and symptoms. But we also need community. One thing we realize within our state is that it takes a village. It takes a team to deal with heat across the board. And that's not only happening on the state agency and governmental level on that end, be it from city, county, state, or federal, but it's also within our communities. One of the big pushes that we've had this year is the Check on Your Neighbor campaign. I think if we can remember back to COVID and the pandemic, we really got isolated and everybody got within their own bubble, and for good reason for a period of time. But we really lost that social connectivity. A lot of community awareness, knowing your neighbor that just lives across the street and if they're doing okay. So we've had a really big push to check on your family, your friends, and your neighbors, getting to know your community and immediate surroundings so that you can have that social connectivity across the community and also get them connected to some of these mentioned services that are available. So if you know about those and can help others connect to it, be it children or the elderly that may not be as aware, that's what we need to do to make sure that we are taking care of our own in our state as we go forward. So that has been one of the highest priorities that we've made for this summer.
Yes, it takes all of us. Spread the word. It takes a village. Noemi, sorry, I have a sister whose middle name is Naomi. I keep wanting to go to that. Noemi, studies have shown that Latino communities are disproportionately impacted and affected by the extreme heat. How is the EPA addressing the intersection of climate change and environmental justice, particularly in Latino communities that are more vulnerable to these extreme weather events?
Sure. Thank you for that question. And just to respond to what was said earlier, I too am a mom. This was mentioned in my bio, I'm a mom of 13-year-old twins. And I also live in Los Angeles, which is probably one of the top 5 cities with the worst air quality. And even though we have a border that separates us, we know that the air doesn't see that border. So we're doing everything we can in Southern California. So thank you, EcoMadres, and thank you for Moms of Clean Air Force. I'm behind you, and we're doing our best in LA to try to get better air quality. But what EPA is doing, so first I want to acknowledge Dr. Chu. He is with US EPA. I know he was mentioned earlier. So if you could just wave. He also is one of the pioneers behind the Children's Health Program at US EPA, and he's here based at ASU. So if you have other questions about EPA and their role in children's health, I would definitely say connect with Dr. Chu. So I'd say one of the first things that we're doing, it's really under the Biden-Harris administration, and it was their Inflation Reduction Act. And so what I want to focus on is something that would be meaningful to you right now. And as part of that Inflation Reduction Act, over $2 billion was given to EPA, and that was given to EPA to give awards out to communities for you to receive that funding to be able to address environmental issues in your communities. Of that, $200 million is being used for technical assistance. So for communities that have really been not able to apply for grant funding because they weren't competitive, there's now funding where we have experts on retainer that can help you put those grant applications together and make it much easier to receive that funding. And the one that I really want to focus on, that's focusing on environmental justice and climate justice, is the community change grants. That grant option is open right now. It closes on November 21st. It is probably the most wide-ranging, multi-pronged approach that we have for taking care of getting better air quality, taking care of getting clean water, a variety of different things. We have both planning grants and implementation grants. And I just want to give an example of 2. So one is in the San Gabriel Valley area, which is just outside of Los Angeles, was given to Active SGV over $20 million for them to work with other community partners to green 10 different schools. And of that, they'll be trying to have cleaner water by focusing on stormwater improvements, making bioswells, and then just focusing on the schools in general. We're talking about heat, putting up canopies. It's been very hot in LA. We're reaching October and it's still 90-degree weather. The other is to a community-based organization that's in South Sacramento, and their focus was really focused on heat and trying to create resilience hubs. So when it gets extremely hot, that they have cooling centers or places to go. And so this is money that's being spent by community groups in their community for them to create the vision and to define what they need within their community. So I would just urge you all, the application closes on November 21st. So if you're interested or you want to learn more or you want to find out others that might be applying within your community, I can also give you that information later.
Great. So that is something that we can actually take action on now, some of the community leaders who are here, and you're already seeing a difference in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for that. We know education and awareness, as we've discussed, is key to change. Yadira, how can grassroots organizations like Poder Latinx amplify the voices of Latinos who are concerned about climate change and its impact on children's health?
Yes, hi everyone. First, I want to thank EcoMadres for having us all come together just a few days before the election. I would say how grassroots organizations can help us elevate the environmental issue, climate justice, building political power. Poder Latinx and many other organizations are focused on building that power so we can really advance our environmental justice, our climate justice agenda. It's extremely important for our community to come out and participate, to elect champions into positions of power that can make our life better and our job a little bit less harder. We do so year-round through an integrated voter engagement approach. We intentionally integrate our civic engagement programs with our EcoPoder program. So year-round, we are registering people, we are engaging, doing a lot of civic education, informing folks of local elections, because local elections matter just as much as federal, and making sure they're informed, they know how to participate. We facilitate the process, and we ask them, what are the issues that you care about the most? And there's no surprise that environment is always a top issue. So we bring them into our EcoPoder program. We make sure that they're informed, not just of every 4 years, every 2 years, but every year when these elections are happening. We also make sure that they have all the information. We know there's been huge advancements at the federal level with these investments of IRA, of the bipartisan infrastructure as well. Our community often is the last one to find out of these benefits. And at Poder Latinx and many other of our partner organizations, we also work really hard on making sure they get the information right away, that they benefit, that they are at everyone's planning stage, not implementation, which is very important. We also make sure that our organizers have a seat at the table. When these plans are being designed, they roll out the execution. If they don't know that communities often need bilingual information, that some of these is not enough to post something on the website, rolling it out in a cultural, linguistic form will make a big difference of who access these benefits and who could really take advantage and improve, help Mother Earth, help us advance the work that needs to get done.
We need to support these organizations, absolutely, as a collective, and get out there and share with our communities, our respective communities, exactly what we're doing as a whole to make these changes and make these efforts to continue changes. Thank you for that. Dr. Livar, I want to ask you, because we want to go back to talking about children for just a moment, and how the extreme heat impacts them differently. How can we improve public health strategies to mitigate these impacts, especially the ones we've seen in the last 2 years?
And, I think one of the things that I think about when, what are those health impacts that, that are happening, and then what can we do about that as we go forward? I have a son who's a sophomore in high school, and, he does outdoor sports and football and fishing, and I have a daughter at ASU. So it's definitely something that hits home when we think about our Latino communities and our children that are out there day to day. Some of the things that we can see happening to children from heat are an impact on learning. So there was a study from UCLA that showed that, starting at 75 degrees or so, for every 1 degree increase that a child experienced, there was a 1% decrease in their grades that were happening on standardized exams. So think about that impact that can happen in Arizona, what we're seeing there. There's other research that shows starting at 70 degrees, if you have children in an unconditioned school experiencing 90-degree temperatures, they have 13% decrease score on their exams compared to a child in a 70-degree unconditioned school. That's huge on their ability to learn, to retain, to get that education as they move forward. It is a huge concern, and a lot of that happens.
Not to mention, we start school very early here in Arizona in a lot of our communities.
We do. We have that, so it's really about having a plan and an awareness about those impacts and what can we do to help children. And a lot of it happens because you have a slow in cognitive function and reaction times that lead to these lower scores. There's also physical considerations for school. They have a greater surface surface area to body mass ratio than adults, and so they have the impacts of environmental heat happening a lot greater to them than due to adults, and they have lower sweating capacity. We have to be aware of that. So they're not able to dissipate heat through evaporation as well as adults would as they go forward. And another big piece is that children are dependent on us as adults. They're dependent on their teachers, their parents, coaches, and others to be able to have recognition and bring them into safe environments if they're experiencing any heat-related illness, because they don't have 100% autonomy like an adult to be able to get out of situations or make those decisions. So we really have to think about some of those impacts that children have. And what can we do to help children within Latino communities or children in general? A lot of our focus goes around school, but it can be in general environments also when we think about this. We can help control environmental heat hazards at schools and elsewhere when possible, so we can keep students out of the heat when we can. So we can think if we're having those extreme heat days that are happening within school or within your area of home, are there indoor air-conditioned areas that we can utilize where they can still experience physical activity, run around, play, and get the mental and physical impacts of having that, but be in a cool environment on those heat stress days. If there's not a large area where they can do those items, well, maybe we need to look at those learning classrooms and be able to utilize those on very specific indicated days, because we don't want to take away, as we said, those social, mental, and health benefits of being outside, where those kids need to get out there, run around, and enjoy nature when possible. But we need to be able to help make those decisions for them to keep them safe in that physical setting. One of the other things we can do is really modify outdoor play spaces. So let's think about shade, whether that be artificial or natural, expanding trees and artificial shade structure when possible. But it could be even easier than that. Can we look at setting up their play sites to take advantage of the shade that's occurring from buildings during the hottest part of the day or the hottest part of the year? You have shade coming off of buildings. Could we move those play structures to be able to take advantage of that, or put them in areas that have increased ventilation and wind to be able to help them cool off during those hot days? Those are some simple things that we can look at. And can we avoid materials that have a high amount of heat radiation? So stay away from that black asphalt when possible, dark colored paints, certain metals and other items that could promote that heat or burns within those play areas. We can also change how students play outside. We can let them get acclimated to the heat. So as those heat starts rising within Arizona, start getting them outside slowly, let them acclimate to the heat as those temperatures increase. It's the same that we promote for outdoor workers. So why aren't we doing that for children? And rather than sending them out in a 120-degree day when they've been in air conditioning for a month straight on the first day of school, and go out and go forth and conquer, we're asking for something to happen in those situations. Also, schedule rest and hydration breaks for kids, whether that's at home, in school, or other areas. If you have a 30 to 45-minute recess at midpoint, I've seen it with sports too. At football games, they'll blow the whistle when they're outside and make the kids go back and get a drink of water, take a break, step in the shade, then go back outside and play. It's a great way to just ensure and help promote hydration and rest while they're experiencing those heat on that end. And then we can do other simple things. We can move recess to before lunch, or move outdoor activities to earlier or later part of the days. And we're seeing that happening more and more to take advantage of the cool when we can. We can also encourage behavior change within children. Make sure that they're wearing sunscreen, that they're wearing light-colored clothing, that they're wearing hats and sunglasses and taking protective measures, especially at the midday when the ultraviolet rays are at their worst and when they're experiencing the most heat. We can also make sure that they hydrate adequately, either before, during, and after physical activity. We need to help remind them and keep them hydrated. As we said, they don't have that same recognition as adults do when it comes to heat-related illness. And then I think we can really focus on educating parents, adults, school teachers, educators, and others within the community to be heat aware. What are those steps that we just mentioned? How can they step in and help protect children as they go forward? How can they recognize the symptoms of heat-related illness and stroke so that they can take initiative and be able to protect those children as we go forward? I think it's really important to promote that as we go in and out of heat season, and not forget that it can happen as early as March and April, or as late as October and November, depending on what we're experiencing. So stay alert, be an advocate, and watch out for those kids as we go forward.
Absolutely. So we know that it impacts them physically, and we know that it impacts them intellectually. What about their mental health?
that is really good. So let's think about this. How hard has it been us to operate if we had a bad night's sleep and to be at 100% the next day? Mental health impacts happen. We have disrupted sleep that can happen for children due to heat. They may not be sleeping as well, which will impact their mental health, and other well-being aspects of them. And also with heat, it can also cause them to stay out of school or cause family displacement to happen also. And those are all behavioral and mental health impacts that can happen across the board. And so we really need to be aware of those children, utilize those resources that are out there, be aware of other items that are available, such as 988 when it comes to mental health and connection to services as we go forward. There is help out there. What can we do to better make people aware of those resources as we move forward?
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. Appreciate it. Noemi, well, let me go back to my question that I was originally going to ask you. What specific initiatives, because I know you've talked a lot about what's happening in Los Angeles, what specific initiatives are being rolled out to protect children's health in regions like Los Angeles and Arizona, where, again, we're continuing to see high heat for extended periods of time?
So thank you for that question. And honestly, it's thanks to the Biden-Harris administration's investing in America. So there are a couple of initiatives. I'm going to tell you 10, but I'm going to do it quickly. I will do it very quick. So all of this funding that came through the Investing in America is really about protecting children's health. And we at EPA are doing everything we can to identify, regulate, and eliminate sources of pollution. And so some of the ways that we can do that, though, is give you tools so that you could also be in charge of what happens in your environment. So one of the first things is an indoor air quality management plan. So when you think about, talking about what you're saying, if it's hot outside and then you're having people go indoors, what does your indoor management plan look like, not only for schools, but also for homes? And so we have toolkits that can be used that can identify what the source of pollution may be in your house. You can check your airflow, you can identify potential sources in classrooms, and you can use it as a model for students. Have them walk through the classroom to do that. And you can contact EPA and we can give you these toolkits. It's called the Indoor Air Quality Management Plans. The other thing, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, is the Air Quality Flag Program. So the idea is on bad air quality days, you'd have a red flag that goes up. And so we too have the resources that we can provide. If you contact us, we can get you a set of those flags so they could be used at your schools or in community centers so people will know what the air quality is for that day. Another thing is, you probably know, is the airnow.gov. And so this is something you can personally have, an app on your phone, particularly if you have anyone in your family. I mean, you could speak to this better than me. If you have, asthma or you're prone to specific things in the environment, you'd be able to check it on your app immediately to know what was happening. And particularly in situations where there may be wildfires or extreme weather, you would be able to check that via the app. The fourth is something that was talked about earlier, and it was resources that came directly to Arizona, is the Clean School Bus Program. So we gave over $18 million to seven different school districts in the Phoenix area to get 47 electric buses to come into your city, right? That takes all the diesel emissions off the streets, better protecting children's health. And so what this will really mean is less emergency room visits, missed days from school, and it's really an opportunity for you to be able to support your community by having these buses. Another way is not just resources that you can apply for directly, but we give resources that can provide that technical assistance or opportunities for you to invest in. One of those is the Go Green Initiative. We gave $8 million for the Go Green Initiative and $6.5 million to the Green Building School Council, and it's really for creating green schools. And so the idea behind this is to help you improve your environment within your school district. And so one of the things you said earlier is when it's really hot outside for you to go indoors. The problem with going indoors is sometimes that's not the best place to be. And so that's what we want to change. And so you can't go outside, you can't go inside. We have to fix that problem. We don't want our Latino children having to choose between one or the other. The other thing that we have, which I think would be something really helpful for children to get involved in, and we're talking about leadership and having them take a role. It's called our President's Environmental Youth Awards, and this really recognizes outstanding students putting together environmental stewardship programs. And so if you have children or if you work in schools or even within your organizations and they're doing environmental stewardship programs, apply to this program. It's a great way to be recognized. You get to go to the White House. I think last year they got to go and meet Vice President Harris. So it's just a great opportunity. And you talked about the earlier panelist about going to the state capitol. What a great way to get someone involved and want to make a movement and understand how important it is to vote when they get to go to the White House. The other second piece of that, it's not just about students and them being recognized, but it's also recognizing teachers. And so we have the Presidential Innovation Awards for environmental educators. And so that also recognizes teachers or educators who have really focused on school curriculum or school management facilities to try to address environmental issues. And so the reason I mentioned those two last is because that application for both of those just became available, and they're not due until January 15th of 2025. So if you know any children, they could start now, start working on their environmental stewardship programs, or if there are any teachers that you want to uplift and honor, this would be a great way to do that. And for those, either one of those, it could be food waste, it could be STEM, it could be recycling, sustainability, lead in drinking water, stormwater management, any of those things would qualify. And so if you want more information on that, just go to epa.gov/education. And then lastly, I'll just leave you with that EPA is not only about protecting the environment and public health, but Dr. Chu could stand up and recognize this. Children's health is probably the most important, protecting our vulnerable communities, and most importantly, protecting our communities of color. What's happening to our communities of color is from historic, it's from redlining, it's from being sited near pollution sources are in the communities we live in. Here in Phoenix, I'm sure you could look at communities of color. Why are they experiencing some heat issues in their community, but the next community over not having the same issues? And so that's the investment. That's about getting out and talking to those. It's like having an Anna Tovar in your community, right? That's super important. And so we at EPA are not only focusing on mitigating environmental challenges, but we too want to partner with organizations like you because we think children's health is important. So
Thank you so much. Yes, you gave us so many resources and so many things to think about in terms of moving forward, so we appreciate that. Yadira, since we are talking about getting out there, continuing to spread the message and spread the word about these initiatives and resources, what are some successful strategies that you've seen in mobilizing Latino communities and parents around climate justice and children's health?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Definitely meeting the community where they are. We often say it, but we don't practice it. It took resources to get here, us today. Often, and we're seeing this right now with the cost of living, gas is expensive. Leaving work early often costs some economic financial burden. So we make it easy for the community by meeting them where they are. Poder Latinx uses this siete patas approach derived from the labor movement. We work with the 7 pillars of the community that our community, our families, parents, children already visit. Example, they're going to school, they're going to consulates. We do a lot of work with the Mexican consulate, with other consulates across the state. We also work with faith-based organizations, small businesses. We know folks have to go get groceries, so make it easy for them to access the information. We also start by having conversations, meeting them where they are. A lot of the times our community members don't connect the data that is out there with the resources and the investments. They don't know how we got here, for example. Very often when we talk to families and have these one-on-one conversations with the community members, they don't connect. Example, they don't understand why in their zip code they have 10 degrees warmer weather than other zip codes in the same state. Why is that? So it's the lack of tree equity, for example. They don't have enough trees in the community, and that makes a big difference, as has already been said, with physical and mental health. We also know that organizing, this would be no surprise to EcoMadres, Latinas has shown a tremendous impact when it comes to climate, environmental justice. Mothers care deeply about the environment. They have a sense of responsibility when we think about leaving the world better for future generations. So Poder Latinx, we have a specific program called Poderosas where we engage and we organize Latinas, because Latinas are pillars as well of our familias, and we often see they organize the entire family. Also want to highlight the closing the gap of information. All of this great information is amazing. All of our communities should know that. Do they know that though? Is that information trickling down through Spanish media, for example, for the Spanish monolingual speakers? We often hear, or there's this notion that immigrants only care about immigration. No, they care deeply about the environment. We often see over 71% of immigrant families that care deeply of the environment, but they're only Spanish monolingual or other non-immigrant folks that prefer to consume media in Spanish. If they're not getting this information, they don't know what the investments are, if they don't know how to start the process, then they're not accessing those benefits, and it's very important for them, again, to be the communities that are mostly impacted to be receiving those benefits first. As we know, Latinos in Arizona live two different climate realities. Everyone experiences heat. Everyone experiences pollution, but at a different level, and Latino children are bearing that front. So these are just some of the strategies that we use, but definitely engaging folks where they are, closing that information gap, and of course, again, making room at the table, claiming that seat. These programs, like I mentioned, Office of Resiliency, speaking to our elected officials, that has a huge impact. Has a huge impact if our community are being taken into consideration when these programs are being executed and rolled out. So we do more of that. Pretty much amplify, bringing community members in, developing their leadership. Leadership is key to make sure they're advocating for themselves and for their families.
We can all make a difference. Thank you to our esteemed panelists. Let's give them all a big round of applause. You've given us a lot to think about and certainly a lot to do, so thank you so much for sharing all of your information, your very important information. We appreciate it. Yes.
All right, how's everyone doing? Hope you guys are doing okay. We moved some chairs over here in case someone's getting in the sun, but hoping you guys are enjoying the show. Really fantastic conversations that we're having, so I'm really excited to pivot to something that we haven't yet covered today. I'd first like to introduce myself. My name is Liz Hurtado. I am a National Field Manager with Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres, and I actually No, okay, oh, there we go. I traveled in from Connecticut today to join you all, and I'm just so excited to be sharing this space with so many leaders from across the Southwest who are sharing my same mission in advancing health equity and protecting our future, which are our children. So today, I actually want to talk to you about some of the really important work that we do at Moms Clean Air Force to protect communities from the plastics crisis. And you might be wondering why that's connected to extreme heat and extreme weather, but you'll soon find out. So I would first like to ask this group, and for those watching us online, with a show of hands, how many of you have heard the term chemical recycling? Okay, that's a good amount of hands I'm seeing. What about the term advanced recycling? How many folks have heard advanced recycling? I know you have. Okay, so there's much fewer hands. Now the next question is, how many of you think either chemical recycling or advanced recycling are environmentally friendly solutions to the plastics crisis? 0 hands up. I see some heads shaking. And that's right, because it actually is not. And what I want to make clear today is that advanced recycling is neither advanced nor is it recycling. In fact, it's just the plastics industry way of saying burning plastics. This misleading practice is greenwashing at its worst. In recent years, the American Chemistry Council and other plastics industry lobbyists have been promoting an old incineration method as a new way to solve the plastic pollution crisis. And they're calling it chemical recycling or advanced recycling, even though nothing gets recycled. Instead, the trash gets entered into a so-called recycling facility that is burned, creating harmful air pollution. Advanced recycling moves plastic pollution from our landfills and our oceans and puts it into the air that we are breathing. This is not a solution. The plastics industry lobby is trying to convince state and federal lawmakers and the EPA that burning plastics in advanced recycling facilities should not count as incineration. They are calling it manufacturing or recycling and seeking to reclassify it as not incineration. This would avoid them having to have any air pollution controls. This would leave companies free to emit unlimited amounts of hazardous air pollution without any monitoring, any reporting, or any control technologies. So, the connection between burning plastics, extreme weather, and Latino communities. What happens is the incineration plastic creates climate warming gases that not only increase our extreme weather events, but it also increases the frequency and intensity. And as many of us have heard today, our communities are already experiencing the devastating impacts from heavy rain, flooding, droughts, hurricanes, heat waves, you name it, our families and our communities are feeling it. So burning plastic also creates cancer-causing toxins, dioxins, and other harmful, highly toxic air pollution. And this is affecting our climate crisis. Due largely to racial discrimination in housing and financial services, many low-income Black and Latino communities are designated as mixed residential industrial zones, making them more vulnerable to multiple pollution sources, like petrochemical plants, incinerators, landfills, and so on. Changing the laws so that these incinerators can emit harmful pollution without any limits in these communities is environmental racism. In Texas, for example, you will find the Houston Ship Channel, which is the world's largest petrochemical complex with more than 200 facilities that process fossil fuels into plastics, fertilizers, and pesticides. There are communities like Cloverleaf that sit on this 52-mile-long stretch where nearly 80% of their residents are Hispanic. They report walking outside their homes only to see dark clouds of chemicals fill the air. This is the reality for many communities living along the Houston Ship Channel and the Louisiana chemical corridors and other places where you may find petrochemical facilities. These are injustices that they have lived with for decades. Yet information about what they're breathing every day is hardly ever found, or it's not easy to find, despite the presence of state air monitoring in the sites nearby. This tends to be a trend across frontline and environmental justice communities across the country. Broader ways of communication and timely alerts are needed on how to navigate the impacts on health so that people know when it's safe to go outside and what they may be exposed to. Families and mothers live in fear of sending their kids outdoors or even having them walk to school without knowing what's in their air. That's why at Moms and EcoMadres, it is critically important for us to share resources that are not just easy to understand, but that they're accessible to them, that they're bilingual, that they're in their language, so that our community members can take actions to protect themselves from air pollution. And even more important than communicating about the health risks would be to prevent it from happening in the first place. So industry actually has plans to build at least 150 new advanced recycling facilities across the United States. Our members have been sending thousands, tens of thousands, of messages to Congress and EPA calling for the strongest possible pollution controls on these facilities to protect our communities and do what we can to halt the build-out of petrochemicals. This past year, 2 waste-to-energy recycling facilities have actually shut down for good. One in Oregon and one in Nevada. As we know, the Fulcrum facility plans in Reno completely went to a halt. And our proposed facility in Pennsylvania was completely canceled, and another one in Ohio was placed on a one-year moratorium, thanks in large part to Mom's advocacy on the ground. Yes, that does deserve a round of applause. And so here in the state of Arizona, there are plans currently for the world's largest plastics burning facility to open in Eloy, a small environmental justice community halfway between Phoenix and Tucson with a Hispanic population of 56%. Moms Clean Air Force and many of our members, as you see today and have heard from, together with advocates across the state, have been actively mobilizing around this ever since news broke to ensure that the facility's plans do not move forward. With nearly 10 million Hispanics in the United States already living in counties with failing air quality grades, it is absolutely imperative that we do all we can to put an end to any further harm being unjustly placed on our communities. Now, more recently, the American Chemistry Council introduced a bill on advanced recycling. The proposed legislation would roll back the nation's hard-won federal environmental policies against plastics industry pollution as written in the Clean Air Act, and would allow for new and expanding uncontrolled waste burning, plastic waste burning, all over the country. Now more than ever is our time to fight back. We must put an end to the build-out of these dangerous facilities, and we must support policies that reduce plastic production and waste. Communities that have been burdened by air pollution for too long deserve cleaner air and water, healthier environments, and climate resilience. So next time you hear the terms advanced recycling or chemical recycling, I hope you hear what the truth really is: plastics burning. Our families deserve better, and we really need to hold those accountable who actually have created this problem in the first place, which is not us, it's the industry. Just wanted to make that clear. So if you'd like to take a quick action today, you will find a QR code for those watching us online. You will find a QR code that will take you to our petition to protect families and communities from plastics pollution. And you'll also find them right here on your tables, easy for you to scan and take a quick action today. But we encourage everyone in the room to continue to keep your ears open, eyes open for any of this greenwashing terms from the industry. And if you need any help in supporting on how to mobilize your communities or fighting back, you know where to find us. So next, I would love to reintroduce our amazing performers, Son Tierra, back to the stage. We're gonna take the next 10 minutes. Feel free to get up, stretch, dance, grab some refreshments, and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes.
And the first song is about electric school buses. We wrote it when the IRA appropriated the money for electric school buses.
Cuando mi bus pasó por ese barrio, no se le oía porque no tenía motor. No hizo ruido ni contaminó al andar, porque era eléctrico y no consumía gas. Cuando mi bus pasó por ese barrio, no se le oía porque no tenía motor. No hizo ruido ni contaminó al andar, porque era eléctrico y no consumía gas. Qué bueno que ya pueda respirar sin inhalar el diésel que tira a la buseta siempre a transitar y de llevar a los niños a estudiar. There goes the bus, again I didn't hear it. What will my teacher say when I am late for school? Again, it just sticks up on me. At least now I can breathe. It's electric and it doesn't spew out soot. There goes the bus, again I didn't hear it. What will my teacher say when I am late for school? Again, it just sinks up on me. At least now I can breathe, cause it's electric and it doesn't spew out soot. I am so glad I'm breathing better air and not inhaling diesel fumes and gas. Every time the bus came rolling by, leaving those giant clouds of smoke behind.
bueno que podamos caminar sin inhalar partículas de bien. Es el que tiraba el auto, el colectivo, aquella micro, la buseta y el camión.
El autobús pasó y nadie lo escuchó. Se fue la guagua y no la
Percibí. El camión ya
no lo escuché.
la micro ni se oyó y la buseta se fue.
El colectivo viene, el autobús se va.
La gente se detiene y los mira pasar. El autobús pasó y nadie lo escuchó. Se fue la guagua y ni la percibí. El camión ya partió y no lo escuché. La micro ni se oyó, la buseta se fue.
Gracias. Legado.
¿Lista? ¿Listas? ¿Ya? ¿Legado?
You got it. Okay.
We're doing legado.
Okay.
Yeah.
I changed. Yeah.
Two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
No te tengo aquí conmigo, algún día partirás. Me quedaré con tu herencia, qué legado dejarás a un camino de tu mano.
Aún dependo de tu actuar.
El futuro de este mundo ya lo puedes rescatar.
Lucha por mí.
Lucharé por ti
Vota por los niños.
y todos los niños.
Algún día recordaré
Por tu futuro
que por mí lograste.
este mundo. Lucha por mí.
Lucharé por ti
Vota por los
y
niños.
todos los niños.
Algún día recordaré que por mí lograste.
Y el de este mundo.
I'm still gonna need your hand while I grow and take a stand. Will you help protect our planet? Will you help protect this land? I still have you at my side, but one day we'll say goodbye. I'll inherit what you left me. May your legacy bring light. Please fight for me.
I will fight for you
For all who fall.
and for all the children
I hope to speak
and for your future.
wisdom for tomorrow.
The program, by the way, is not over. This is just a little snack for those of us who get hungry 3, 4, 5 times throughout the day like I do. So please have a snack and come right back down. There is still one more section to the program. And at the very end, you're going to be up and dancing to our very last song. Please don't miss out on that. So apenas puedan, siéntense otra vez. You may need to migrate and take a shadier spot or just pull up your chair into the shade. But we're going to be here for another 45 minutes to an hour. Entonces, no, mentiras, EcoMadres y EcoPadres. This is our anthem. It's called EcoMadres y EcoPadres. We cite the statistics that you heard here today. For example, the one line in the song says, people who live, gente que vive en áreas contaminadas, people who live in contaminated areas, Latinos 68, the 68% of Latinos do. Niños que no juegan por tener asma, children who can't play outside because they have asthma, 40%, Latinos 40. So you'll hear the statistics that you heard spoken about in our song.
Gente que vive en áreas contaminadas, Latinos 68, niños que no juegan por tener asma, Latinos 40,
Los que inhalan demasiado ozono,
Latinos 1.3
personas expuestas a clima extremo,
Latinos 55, tanto bebé afectado por el mercurio, Latinos envenenados, leyes que no protegen lo suficiente, Latinos actuemos. Ay, 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 ¿qué vamos a hacer para proteger a los que queremos? Ay, 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 ¿cómo proseguir para conseguir que mejor estemos? Una EcoMadres, organicémonos, EcoPadres,
informémonos,
EcoNiños,
conectémonos,
EcoNiños. Hay mucho por hacer, tomar conciencia y votar. Cada voz tiene fuerza, cada voz contará. Ayúdame a que nos oigan, es el momento de actuar.
unámonos,
Organicémonos
informémonos,
y conectémonos. Son los hijos que tenemos los que tanto impulso dan. Su salud y su futuro no podemos abandonar.
es un mundo el que tenemos, un planeta y nada más. Y es por eso que queremos nuestras voces levantar. EcoMadres y EcoPadres, que se escuche esta canción. EcoMadres y EcoPadres, vamos a tomar acción.
EcoMadres y EcoPadres, vamos a tomar acción.
Gracias.
Un aplauso. Muchas gracias, Karin.
If I can ask everyone to come to the front, and if you're sitting in the back, I know the sun's coming out, feel free to move your stuff and have a seat in the front. We still have a couple of program. Thank you. If everyone can come and have a seat. And I also wanted to add that the centerpieces are flores de cempasúchil for your ofrenda, or you can replant them for the, your ofrenda for Dia de los Muertos if you prepare one for your home. Otherwise, you can replant it in your garden because we believe in sustainability and protecting our planet. I wanted to recognize our first Latina Deputy City Manager, Ms. Gina Montes. She's standing up, so I won't ask her to stand up, but she's here. Thank you very much. And if everyone can come towards the front and have a seat, that would be great. Awesome. Moving on to our program, I would love to introduce Dr. Casey Ernst, Department Chair and a Professor of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at the University of Arizona. Dr. Casey Ernst is a Department Chair and Professor at the University of Arizona, specializing in infectious disease, epidemiology. I'm an English learner, so these words, and I haven't slept. Her work focuses on environmental factors in vector-borne diseases like dengue and malaria, with research spanning Kenya and southern Arizona. Dr. Ernst also studies the effects of extreme heat on maternal and child health as part of the Southwest Center on Resilience for Climate Change and Health, SCORCH. Her work explores how heat waves during pregnancy impact infant health and neurodevelopment, aiming to promote climate resiliency through built environment and policy interventions. I'd love to welcome Dr. Casey Ernst.
Thank you all for having me come and speak today on behalf of both myself, our SCORCH organization, as well as Dr. Melissa Furlong, who is the individual who has really led this work at the University of Arizona. It's been really an inspiring morning. The speakers have really touched my heart in terms of really thinking about the real impacts that we're all facing with climate change, and here, especially with our exposure to extreme heat. Engagement in climate change and health action is absolutely critical, and I am just so amazed to see all that's going on just within the people in this room, as well as how it's touching the communities outside. One of the things that I want to just start with is a little bit of statistics from the National Climate Assessment, because I think it's really relevant to the discussions that we've been having here today. So children that are born in 2020, as compared to those of us that were born around 1965, have the exposure of nearly double the risk of wildfires, floods, cyclones, droughts, and heat waves within their lifetime. That's a staggering figure that we should all take a minute to absorb, that this is something that our children are going to be experiencing. We are already seeing it in our lifetimes, but they will see even more of this. And children's mental health is suffering. In a poll of 1,000 nationally representative children, ages 16 to 25, I guess that's not children per se, youth, about 46% said that they were very worried or extremely worried about climate change. And in about 1/4 of children that responded, they said that it affected their ability to get on with their day, their daily functioning. That's a staggering amount of impact that is already occurring in our youth. One of the things that is a positive is that research is demonstrating that children who are engaged in climate justice, in advocacy, and environmental justice activities see an improvement in their mental health. it helps them to be part of the solution. And so I was really excited to hear about the Presidential Environmental Youth Award and some of these other activities to engage our youth in really trying to be part of this climate solution, because it benefits not just the whole community, but themselves as well. So let me start out by saying that I am also a mom. I have 3 children. I have 3 daughters, 11 and 16 and 19. My oldest is now at NAU, so she is escaping the heat a little bit. But I'm also a mom of a child with ADHD. So my eldest has ADHD, and during her early pregnancy, I lived in Western Kenya. Actually, I was doing my dissertation research there, and temperatures were relatively warm, but not hot like it is here in Phoenix or Tucson, but hotter than in Michigan, where I'd been focusing on my graduate research studies. So when Dr. Furlong approached me to sort of collaborate on the work that she was doing, I immediately started looking inward and thinking, I wonder how this might have influenced my own daughter's development when I was pregnant with her and living in an environment in rural Kenya where there wasn't air conditioning, et cetera. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the larger body of work that we're doing in Arizona, and I'll get to Dr. Furlong's specific findings in just a minute. But we've been really trying to focus our work at the Southwest Center on Resilience for Climate Change and Health, which we have aptly named SCORCH, thanks to Dr. Lim, who helped us develop that acronym. And our mission is to improve health equity in arid lands across the lifespan by enhancing existing community partnerships and supporting adaptation efforts by Indigenous, Latino, low-resource urban and rural communities in the southwestern U.S. and globally. This is a long-term goal, but I think one of the heartening things that I see is that this is something that has been funded by the National Institute of Health. The National Institute of Health had often had a tradition of looking at science that really reduced things to its very small parts, genetics and molecular questions. But they're really now pivoting and encompassing this idea of this needs to be translated into action. We need to engage communities in really moving science towards solutions. So this is a long-term goal that we are trying to achieve with SCORCH, but we want to really meet that specifically to our region and where we live here in Arizona and the Southwest and Northern Mexico, because we do face really critical challenges here with our increasing number of high heat days and waves of heat that last not just days, but weeks and months. This is our new normal, and we must learn what consequences this will have on our health, as well as develop strategies to increase our community resilience. So SCORCH has multiple components. I want to just give a brief overview of what we do. So I'm the lead of our administrative core, so that's all the fun stuff, right? All the administration. And then we have folks who are working on trying to integrate data from the community so that we can do more complex research, and that's led by Dr. Hoover. And then we have a wonderful community engagement core lead in Dr. Mona Aurora, and she's been working with nonprofits, government organizations. She recently, just on Wednesday, was helping out with the Arizona Heat Summit that was held right here in Phoenix. And then we have 2 research projects that are currently funded under our center. And one is really focusing on that primary topic of the day, extreme heat exposure, and the risk of ADHD in childhood. And then the second one is focused on what can we do about it? What can we do to provide more resilience in our communities through modifying our environment, through improving where we live and making that exposure a little bit less harsh. So, talking about heat exposure in pregnancy and neurodevelopment. So when I first heard about this link, my question was, how is it that heat exposure could be related to ADHD? This was not my primary area of expertise. As you heard, I was really mostly looking at infectious diseases, vector-borne diseases, malaria, et cetera. And so I'd known that ambient temperatures were associated with several health outcomes, including myocardial infarctions, dehydration, your cognitive ability, as was discussed on stage, and the testing scores that decline when you have children exposed to extreme heat, and heat stroke and death. But as it turns out, during pregnancy, temperature can have a significant impact on our hormones. In animals, temperature can influence sex ratios. In amphibians, with higher heat conditions producing more males in some species and some more females in others. In humans, high temperatures have been associated with preterm birth and low birth weight. When exposed to high temperatures, our bodies are trying to protect us by creating what are called heat shock proteins. These proteins protect the cells from environmental and cellular stressors, and they also help proteins function normally. However, those proteins can also influence embryogenesis, spermatogenesis, and neurodevelopment. The exposure to extreme heat can also alter sex and steroid hormones, which play a role in neurodevelopment, including testosterone, which has been implicated in sex-skewed neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism and ADHD. So the biological mechanisms are really, in some ways, built by our body's own attempt to protect us from these extreme heat exposures. Now, despite these associations that have been known for a fairly long time, really little had been explored related to neurodevelopment and heat exposure. And so Melissa plunged in to try to start exploring this link. So what did she do? She took weather data, and that was weather data on temperature and humidity, birth records that had address and time of birth, and Medicaid data, which had information on diagnoses and medical records, including ADHD diagnoses. For each of those individuals, she then looked backwards at the weather that had occurred at different weeks, both preconception as well as all throughout pregnancy, and then tried to define during those weeks, when did people experience 3, 4, or 5-day heat waves. She also actually looked at the opposite, cold waves. Because as we know, with climate change, it's not just sort of everything's heating up, we have more extreme variability. So we may end up having an occasional cold wave as well. So the way she defined a heat wave or a cold wave is not that it was, over 105 or over 110. It was looking at that very extreme subset of days that were hot, those that were hotter than 95% of the days in the previous 5 years. So you can imagine that as climate changes, that threshold, that temperature threshold, is going to get higher and higher. And we may experience things at levels that are impacting us, even if we aren't achieving that 95% hotter than normal. The cold wave days were sort of the opposite of that, those that had 95% of days that were actually warmer than those cold wave days. So then she looked at what the differences were in people who had ADHD and those that did not have a diagnosis of ADHD. And what she found was that first, demographically, those who were assigned male sex at birth, those born to mothers with less than a high school degree, those who were of Black or white race, born to unmarried moms, and those with a fall conception season were more likely to have ADHD than what would have been expected. I want you to reflect on a few of those factors. Moms who were unmarried, and those that had less than a high school degree. These are individuals who are already probably struggling to have the resources that they need to support their kids. And as a mom of a child who had ADHD, I know how many resources it takes to try to keep them on track academically and to help them succeed. So, with the heat waves, what she found was that when people were exposed, whether the heat wave lasted 3, 4, or 5 days, if individuals were exposed during that preconception window and early stages of pregnancy to heat waves, their children were more likely to have a diagnosis of ADHD. So these are the early stages. A lot of us think about while we're pregnant, trying to have healthy behaviors. But the fact that the preconception stage was also linked to neurodevelopmental outcomes tells us a lot about the need to support all women of childbearing age to ensure that they have access to environmentally safe conditions. In addition, pregnant moms who were exposed to a cold wave in the very last stages of pregnancy, and children exposed during early infancy, so after the baby was born, up to 6 months old, demonstrated an increased risk of ADHD as well. So if you look at the data, there's sort of these sinusoidal waves that are opposite of each other, with the heat waves and the cold waves. So this exposure to extreme weather on either end had evidence of causing detrimental impacts on neurodevelopment. We need to bolster access to conditions that cushion or cocoon women of childbearing age and people who may become pregnant during extreme weather events. It's essential to reduce the risk. We know that there are stark inequities with who is vulnerable to heat emergencies. While anyone can be affected by heat, location, economics, all compound those risks. And social, ethnic, and racial factors all influence who is most at risk. Disproportionately, communities of color, as well as communities with low wealth, older or younger age, and women who are pregnant, have a higher risk of exposure to extreme heat. Now, I found a flyer on the back table, and I wanted to just provide a little bit of information from this as well, which is that according to the fact sheet, the National Center for Farm Worker Health, about 80% of farm workers self-identify as Hispanic, and as extreme heat days become more frequent and intense, there will be more time when outdoor work is unsafe. And on the other side, it indicates that a 2005 study found that only 42% of agricultural workers accessed first trimester prenatal care compared to 76% nationally. We have a lot of work to do to try to make sure that we're reaching the most vulnerable, individuals who are working in high heat conditions that may then go on to experience more challenges as they are raising their children. So how do we actually create that cushion? Well, a lot of what you're doing here today is moving that needle forward. There are a lot of programs that are in place, low-cost energy during summer events, trying to provide assistance with home cooling, heating bills, preventing energy shutoffs, having more efficient energy homes, repairing and replacing cooling equipment. But these are just a start. There absolutely needs to be so much more in terms of policy, advocacy, safe working conditions for people who have differential exposure. Because not everyone can access these benefits if they aren't in charge of where they live. Cooling centers are also a community level intervention that's there, and public spaces provide water and heat relief, but they have limited hours and accessibility. So there are these initiatives that are starting, but one of the things that is a passion of mine is how do we actually modify the environment in which we live? So this includes some of the initiatives that have been discussed today. There's tree planting that's going on in Phoenix, as well as Tucson, to try to provide shade cover, to try to reduce the urban heat island effect. And green spaces are also amazing resources for our community. They provide spaces for recreation, and more studies are demonstrating how exposure to green space improves mental health and well-being, and residential exposure to greenness has shown positive influence on pregnancy outcomes, birth weight, preterm births, etc. However, there are trade-offs to increasing green space. It can provide habitat for mosquitoes and ticks. So we have another project where we're actually trying to develop a tool that helps planners identify ahead of time what those trade-offs and health outcomes would be. So this tool will allow planners to put in multiple designs, work with a community to identify what their priorities are, and build an environment that's much more healthy and resilient to these shocks that are increasingly frequent in our lives. So with that, I will close and just say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I do hope that some of you will look into our work. We actually do have a call for community seed grants right now. They're small, $25,000 grants for community organizations to conduct work to combat climate change in the community. You just have to look at our website, which I believe is scorch.arizona.edu. So please do consider applying. We would love to see some of these community solutions and support them. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ernst, for sharing your tremendous research and expertise with us. I'm Danielle Berkowitz-Sklar, and I'm the National Project Manager for Moms Clean Air Force and EcoMadres. I am so moved by the conversations that were held today about all the work that's being done, how we're coming together to protect our Latino communities from the heat-related health impacts of climate change. At EcoMadres, we focus on safeguarding the health of families that are experiencing the physical and mental health impacts of living in close proximity to toxic air pollution and with higher exposure to extreme weather. At the forefront of the conversations that we have heard today, we've really focused on amplifying the needs of the communities that need the most support. As we work with families, but all of this starts with protecting our parents and protecting our mothers at the vulnerable period of pregnancy. So while this concludes our live stream component, for all of those of you tuning in online from wherever you may be across the country, we do hope that these conversations continue and that we continue to work together to make sure that our communities receive the rapid and equitable interventions that we deserve. So for those of you online, please make sure to check out our stories on Instagram at EcoMadres_ to sign petitions and take action today and beyond. Thank you so much for your time today at our inaugural EcoMadres Summit, and until next time. But for those of you in the room, this will continue, so our conversation will go on.
Meet las EcoMadres. We're a community of caregivers fighting for clean air and climate justice for Latinos across the United States. EcoMadres is a special program of Moms Clean Air Force, a national movement of nearly 2 million members standing up for the health of our children. Low-income communities of color are often hit first and worst by climate change impacts and air pollution. And we recognize that issues such as language barriers and unequal healthcare access increase the vulnerability of Latinos. At EcoMadres, we connect the science.
I'm so grateful to be back up here talking to you guys. Anyone who's by the sun or in the sun, please move to the front. It is really hot, and for those of you guys who are traveling from out of town, it is dangerous heat, so please stay out of the sun. And I'm just glad that I get to introduce two women that I have been working with in many different roles. So for those of you guys who know me from my other roles, I've always been grateful to work with Unlimited Potential. It's an organization that is near and dear to my heart. If you guys saw the pictures in the back, if you guys were able to walk back there, there are some portraits with some of these incredible women, promotoras or community health workers, who do so much in their community by educating about different issues. But I've had the honor to work with them throughout the years, and every time I knock on the door, not only do they answer, but I know that Dr. Vieira is always like, yes, Ilenia, you are welcome to come in and share and work with us. So thank you very much, Dr. Emma Vieira and the promotoras, for being here and for always opening the doors whenever I need to work on an issue, and especially such an important issue like what we're talking about today. And thank you, Dr. Ernst, for your remarks. As someone who is ADHD and autistic, I was able to connect a lot of dots, so thank you for that research. Dr. Emma Vieira is the Executive Director of Unlimited Potential with over 30 years of experience in improving social determinants of health and promoting integrated services under her leadership. The organization excels in community health worker outreach and education. Dr. Vieira also serves as an adjunct faculty member at the University of Arizona's Mal and Edit Zuckerman College of Public Health, contributing to health initiatives at international, national, and local levels. If we can please welcome her with a round of applause. Thank you. And now I would like to welcome Paloma Greenwald, who I met recently, and ever since I met her, I feel this connection because I have a friend from El Paso who she reminds me of, so I'm really excited every time I run into her. She is a fierce advocate in our communities, especially for Latinas and the environment. So I'm so honored to know you and so glad to be introducing you and working on this panel with you. Paloma Greenwald is a public health professional with 25 years of nursing experience specializing in Spanish-speaking population and health policy advocacy. With expertise in school nursing, elder care, and climate health, she addresses the social determinants of health through initiatives like voting rights and food security. Holding a master's in public leadership and certifications from Harvard, Paloma's global perspective is enriched by her work on the Camino de Santiago, a medical mission to Jamaica, and crisis communications training in Rome. Passionate about equitable health policy, she seeks to drive positive change. Please welcome Paloma. Because I want to be respectful of your time, and we are in Arizona, and we are still experiencing very hot fall. I'm just glad that we are currently in the shade. We know that there are people who are out there currently working right now in the fields, cleaning hotel rooms, and doing other work in this hot sun. So I'm just so grateful that the work that I get to do is right now in a beautiful courtyard and shaded, and I get to be amongst you guys. So I always remember my privileges, but I wanted to start by just, I did a little brief introduction, but please give me like a couple minutes of remarks and talk about the work and what drives you the most about the work that you're currently doing. And we'll start with Dr. Vieira.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, the opportunity to be here. It's a beautiful event. So my name is Emma Vieira. I have the privilege to be the executive director for Unlimited Potential. Unlimited Potential is a nonprofit organization. We have been in existence for 39 years. And we started with education. Actually, parents coming together asking, we want a better, brighter future for our children. What can we do? And at that time, the executive director said, well, if you want something better for your children, you have to start with yourself. Since then, we have taken education as the foundation for everything that we do. And we have gone up and down as the community have gone up and down, and we have changed and transformed as the community have changed and transformed. Today, we have three main pillars that we work with. Adult education, and workforce development, that yes, we have English as a second language, GED, technology classes. We are a training site for community health workers. We have over 250 community health workers in different levels of their training. It truly is amazing what they do. And we work in the environmental justice area. And that what we do is going neighborhood by neighborhood, organization by organization, and making the link between health and climate change. Once that link is there, you see how individuals are willing, wanting to organize and make the changes that they need to in order to change their built environment. And then the third area is healthy living, disease prevention. That is the core of community health workers. That is in primary prevention, secondary prevention. We talk about the nutrition, the physical activity, the mental health. We talk about the prenatal care and how to develop that family unity that is so important for all of us in our health and just developing that healthy family. So when you look at it, yes, it is a lot of areas. Everything is related to the social determinants of health, and everything is with that individual, family, and community at the center of what we do. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Dr. Vieira. Those all very important work, especially, everything does revolve around the social determinants of health.
Hi. Thanks again for the invitation. Beautiful place, beautiful food. I'm so grateful for this community who feeds my soul daily. I've connected with so many of you in gratitude because this can be hard work. So we have to celebrate these kinds of moments. So yes, my name is Paloma Patricia Paulina Vulgaris Turujols. Así nací en El Paso, la frontera de México. So I have a long name, and I was born on the border of Mexico on the El Paso side. However, I was, maybe 5 or 6 years old when I realized my name was not Calladita. Because my mother and her family would say, Manténgate calladita, calladita, shh, be quiet, little one. Keep quiet. And that just didn't fit, right? That wasn't me. And much to their surprise, here I am speaking as loudly as this microphone will allow. So that was kind of my origin story. I later became a registered nurse. I did my training in Tempe at Arizona State. And I wanted, I think, to help other people. It was a simple endeavor. And I wanted to believe that I had impact. And I think, that's self-determination, right? Like, we all want to believe that we're here to change the world. And I started seeing patterns. I have worked all over the United States in a nursing capacity. Being bilingual actually put me into situations, maybe advancing my career. It was really helpful to get involved in policy very early on, primarily for injured workers under workers' compensation statutes, who really couldn't maneuver the system of healthcare without someone translating, so with a healthcare perspective as well. So I just wanted to think, I'm making all the difference, until I saw a statistic that said of all the factors that are incorporated in our healthcare outcomes, only like 20% are related to the healthcare worker and the individual. The rest are impacted by social determinants of health. 80% of our lives are predetermined by social determinants of health. And to take that one farther level of extension, it's not society that just believes, Latinos live over here, or clean water goes to them and not to you. Whatever we believe about society is ambiguous. It's hard to pin down. But if you refer to these decisions as political determinants of health, now you have an individual who's voting. You have elected officials who are taking action on an outcome that affects all of our health. So yes, political over even social determinants of health. They are all impacting our daily lives. So that's how I came to know Ilenia.
Thank you. No, it's definitely, I feel like I am in a full circle living my best life right now, because until all these conversations happened today, I finally, for the first time in my 41 years, feel like I'm at the right place at the right time. So thank you for all of the things that you guys do, and just the way I have seen you guys work in your communities. And me share some examples of federal funding programs that local communities can tap into to address climate resilience and health impacts, especially related to maternal and children's health.
A quick one, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about a program with the American Lung Association that's putting air quality monitors in people's homes. And in my work as a school nurse, I think it's important to recognize that it has to filter down to the home level, right? And so as many of those air quality monitors that we can get into average regular people all across the valley, wherever, I think that's a huge win. And the lesson from that is that any climate or environmental investments are literally health investments,